Thank you all for meeting with me. You're all doing some wonderful work destroying the world. But I think it's probably time for us to reevaluate.
Yeah, sorry for the interruption, but I think we're in the wrong meeting. We're not here to destroy the world. We're here to save it. You see, we are some of the leading leaders of liberal causes, and I'm with the Human Rights Campaign, who focus on LGBTQ plus and trans rights. You see, I have an equal sign to let you know that I'm a good person.
Oh, excuse me, women's reproductive rights.
Climate.
Free Palestine. Open borders.
I misspoke before. You guys are not destroying the world, okay? You are saving the world.
Hey, whoa, what's up with those scare quotes?
Pretty sure I didn't use scare quotes when I said saving the world. The important thing to keep in mind is that there's a big election coming up, and you and I, we're all on the same page. Okay, You folks, and how can I say this? You might need to tone it down. Just that was a good question. You're women's reproductive rights, right? Okay, excellent branding, by the way. It's much easier on the ears than baby murder. So kudos to you on that one. But opposing any restrictions all the way through to the 9th month. I mean, you see how you're kind of tipping your hand, right? Makes people think, wait, maybe they actually want to kill babies. And we do, obviously.
No, we don't.
Oh,
No, we don't.
right. We don't. But you see how it can kind of look that way. So that's all I'm saying. Let's tone it down. And immigration. Clearly, we don't want a completely open border that undermines any sense of national sovereignty, driving down wages for the working class and overtaxing the welfare state. So let's go a bit easy there too. I mean, why not something like this? Why not something like diversity is our...
Are you trying to say diversity is our strength?
Yes.
How do you say that without laughing? Oh my gosh. I can't even get through it. This is head and moi. My sides. My goodness. Okay, what about you? Pro-Palestine. You are, I'm going to say this. You're kind of coming across like you just want to wipe Israel off the map and kill all the Jews.
We do want to wipe Israel off the map and kill all the Jews.
Of course, yes. And that's awesome. I'm all for that. I love that. But you need to pretend like you don't want to wipe Israel off the map and kill all the Jews.
Why?
Excuse me?
I mean, we're pretty clear in our position, and most young people and everyone on college campuses, and half the Democratic Party, of course, still support us.
Yeah, it's cool now.
You may have a point there. You might be the only person in here that can be as evil as you want to be and get away with it.
Thanks for joining me on Thinking with Anderson. Now, in my interviews, I like to talk with people who are really on the cutting edge, and that turns out to usually be in philosophy or theology or pastors. And today, I'm broadening out a little bit because I'll be talking with Jarret LeMaster, who is on the cutting edge as an actor and a producer. You might know him best. If you squint a little bit right now, you might be able to say, wait a minute, I think I know that guy. I've seen him.
Yeah.
That's Satan himself.
This looks
right there. Yeah. So I wanted to talk with him about how he got into acting, how he got into comedy, and he does a lot of other stuff. So I'm excited. Thank you for joining us.
Yeah, I'm super excited to be here. Thanks, Owen. It's an honor to be here. I'm excited.
Well, we met because we both travel in some, Christian conservative circles. Mm-hmm. And so we met, and have similar goals, even though in one way our worlds might be a lot different. Secular university, but I think actually it's going to be really similar because I'm going to ask you a little bit about Hollywood. I bet we have a lot of similar experiences in terms of being Christians in unfriendly places. So just tell us a little about like the general things. How'd you get interested in acting as a young person?
That's a good question. I kind of grew up doing church plays. I did school plays. My first play was Fat Jehoshaphat, which was in the church. Yeah, and I played a messenger. And I still remember my first line. It was like, Jehoshaphat, the Meunites are coming from beyond the sea. And that was my only line. Yeah.
That was your line. All right.
Yeah. And I was like, this is it. I'm going to make my life as an actor.
Yeah. Good,
no,
good.
I think I was like 6.
You really enjoyed it.
Yeah. No. Well, honestly, like I did want to do a lot of other things. And my story is interesting because I started off as an actor. And I always felt sort of called to ministry as well. Mm-hmm. And so I felt like acting was going to be sort of a missionary endeavor for me in Hollywood. And I kind of came out here, was a professional actor for about 5 years. And then the Lord called me into ministry for like 14 years. And then he allowed me to come back into this, like kind of with a sanctified
Yeah.
sort of craft, right? So like it was like I want this, and this is a common story, I think. If you
I was
read,
going to ask you that. Actually,
yeah,
I wrote that down as someone to ask you because your IMDb bio mentions something that I think there's a big story behind. It says it wasn't until you left Hollywood that you got your first leading role. And I thought that sounds like a good story. And also, isn't that kind of a common way that God works in our lives?
yes, absolutely. Well, the thing about walking with God is that he gives you all these gifts, talents, and desires, and then he then requires them of you.
Yeah.
So like that's the story. It's like, it's always the story. He's like, "Here, I want you to do these things." And then he's like, "But wait, are you willing to give these things up?" It's like I was just reading the story of Abraham, and I this is the dream, and I want you to sacrifice this dream and this
Yeah.
future. And so I think that's a really common thing. I think if the Lord likes you, he's going to require all of your stuff, and
Yeah.
then he'll take it and then he'll give it back to you
Yeah.
and multiply it and do whatever he wants to do with it. And that's the story that's my story.
Mhm.
So when I left Hollywood, I had been an actor. I was working at one of the big professional theaters down here in LA, and I felt the Lord call me into ministry, and so I ended up going into ministry, and and uh, and immediately within like a month or whatever, one of my friends called me up. He's like, "Hey, do you want to be the lead in this movie?" And I was like, So I had to go back to the Lord and be like, "Okay, is this something I can do?"
Yeah.
And so finally, he was like, "Yeah." He allowed me to do it,
Yeah.
and so that's kind of how it worked. And then from then, I never hit the pavement. I never started auditioning. I just always would trust the Lord, and He would bring the parts
Yeah.
that He wanted me to play. But mostly, I was doing ministry, so I was like a young adults pastor and a worship pastor, and that was my life.
Mhm.
But then every once in a while, I'd get to do voiceovers, or I'd get to go on location somewhere, shoot a Lifetime movie or something like that.
Mhm.
And
Yeah.
yeah, so that was
Those are
kind of the
favorites
way.
over here. I'm gonna have to look for yours now because yeah, we like to watch Hallmark and Lifetime movies.
Yeah, I gotta say, it's not a movie. Usually, I was on like two like ghost shows.
Okay.
Like it's like so. Anyway, yeah, it's
Still,
just
that's still fun. Yeah.
yeah, it was super fun.
But there seems to be a way that God asks, he gives us a talents, like you said, we need to develop them. But then we also have a lot of us still in the picture where
Yeah,
I want to be great at X, Y, or Z. And so he's very good as our Heavenly Father to work that out of us so we can really serve him and not get in
right.
our own way. And so I
Well,
think that's such a common way that God works.
absolutely. Well, and it's idolatry, like at the beginning, it's really easy to let your talents become your idol, or the success that they bring become your idol. And as the Lord sort of carves you out of different stuff and kind of like gets, like works all the real estate in your heart, and he keeps like buying up different plots of land in your
Yeah.
spirit,
Good way
like,
to put it. I like that.
and then eventually when he has that land, he's like, all right, now we can move forward. And I think that's how he did it with me. And so to make the long story short, 14 years or whatever, then the Lord started allowing me to do stuff. And I was in Unplanned and Nefarious with Chuck and Carrie over at Believe
Yeah.
It. And that sort of opened up some doors because, from a movie that I had produced called Turnaround Jake, I made some connections. They got me into these other things. And then finally, it took like 7 years.
Mhm.
And then I heard about the Babylon Bee, and I was kind of at the point where I was like, I feel like I should be back in Hollywood. So I started praying, and the Lord opened up the door at Babylon Bee, and I started doing acting, and then I became a producer there. And it was just kind of a crazy God story.
Yeah.
He just totally
Yeah.
opened up the doors, and as I'll walk through them and trust Him, and
Yep.
and try really hard not to be, into my own thing.
That's the hard part, I think. And I know
No.
it's really similar in my life where you're right. God gives you talents. You really have to work hard to develop them.
Hmm.
But then the temptation is to think that because I've done that, something good will happen.
Right.
And instead, like when I think back on my life, all my best plans of how to get from A to B, they didn't really work out. But
Right.
because I'd worked hard in one thing, using what God gave me, He said, "Well, I'm going to bring you over here instead," and it was better than what I thought I would get to. So it's
Yeah.
always like this learning to trust God. He knows what He's doing. But you have these plans, you think the easy steps, I should just be able to do this and slide right into this great position, and it just doesn't always happen.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, it's weird because it's with God, it's not linear. I
Mhm.
feel like that's it's not like you build your career like normal. It's decision making with God is a whole different thing that we may be able to talk about. But trying to decide what to do next. If you were doing it in the traditional way, you'd probably like go, okay, pros and cons. I want to build this. I want to go here. And you make a 5-year plan and all that kind of stuff. With God, it's a whole different story. Like what God does is he takes you and he, he's not a safe lion like we talked about. And so what he says is like, get on my back. We're going to go on an adventure. You don't have any control, but it's going to be great. And it's going to be terrifying. It'll be terrifying and great and unexpected. And it's totally an adventure. It's like the Secret Life of Walter Mitty or something like that, where there's a call and he just goes out and he's like, all right, it's an adventure now. Yeah, that's it.
Yep. But I think it's also because a critic might say, well, so it's just kind of like being random and chaotic. But I think because you develop your talents and maybe you make 5 and 10-year plans, so you've got that skill set, God can say, yeah, now we can do this, but it's not going to look like what you thought it was. So it's not like random either. The call of Abraham was to Abraham, who had been faithful, but yeah, you're right. It's a complete adventure. And that's really the beauty of it, where the world wants that kind of thing. It intuitively yearns for that.
Yeah.
But then it rejects God, who will give that to them.
Well, and we think that we're going to find meaning in the kind of success that we want. And inevitably we don't. You talk to these old actors. I've talked to some old actors that, had huge successes. And I'll ask them, like, what's your favorite thing? And they'll be like, well, the things that I thought were going to bring me success or wholeness or whatever, were not those things. Like the biggest successes I had were terrible. And then I find meaning in my family or like later on in their lives, like God or whatever. Yeah. And so it's a very interesting, it's a strange thing. It sounds like one of my kids is dying, actually.
I can't hear it over here, but
okay, good.
If you gotta check anything, that's fine.
Nah, he's all right. He does this a lot when he's kind of mad,
How many you got?
I have 4 boys. I have 4 boys. Yeah.
I got 4 boys. I got 3 boys and a girl.
Oh, that's awesome. That's awesome. Yeah.
Yeah. So I think that's right. And it's good for young people to hear that, because from someone like you or me, who's kind of been through it, and we're not old yet. I mean, I think they probably say we are old, but we've got more to go. But they would say, yeah, how did you get there? It's good for them to know what the ride is like. And also just be aware that the world tries every way it can to entice you and make it you think that this thing over here is what will make your life perfect.
Yeah.
And like you said, when you talk to someone who got that later in life, they're like, yeah, that just really wasn't what made my life great.
Well, no, you're right. And and I think that he gives it back to you in ways that are a lot more meaningful, and you get to kind of use your gifts for the kingdom or whatever. It's like it's for his purposes. And that's, again, like I've had way cooler experiences trying to do things for the Lord than I ever did on my own. And
yeah, you said something I liked, which was God gives it back to you. And I've experienced that in my life, where I thought dreams come crashing down, my plans didn't work out. But then I find out God was using that in me to get me somewhere better. And he gives it back to you in ways that you realize this is actually better than I thought I'd get. I should have just trusted God the whole time. Like if there's one motto, it's like, man, I should have just trusted God the whole time.
Yes, no, it's so true. Yeah, but I think it takes a lot of time for humans to kind of learn how to trust the Lord. It's one of those things where you inherently don't, because you can't see him. And that's the thing, trust and faith, like that's all part of it. No, he's like, I'm not going to show you myself in a traditional way. I'm not going to show up and you're going to, be amazed by my size or whatever, because it would kill you. He's like, I want you to learn how to trust me, even though you can't see me. And that's a tall order for a human being, like we're fragile beings. But anyway, so I don't know, man, like it's been an interesting journey, and the Lord I get to use these gifts for the Lord, and I can't believe that I do. Like it's sort of a dream come true.
Yeah.
Oh, but the other thing I was going to say is this: it's like I think oftentimes it takes a lot longer than a traditional, like skyrocketing like to success or whatever. I feel like for me it has taken a lot longer, but I have to remind myself. And I'm reading through the Bible again, the Torah right now, and then it's interesting because God never really respects people's age, like it doesn't matter how old they are. And, I thought I had to be successful young because I was going into Hollywood, and all those things are stupid. Like none of that matters to the Lord. And so he's going to use you when he wants to use you. And Moses was 80 and all these,
Yeah.
like it's kind of insane.
Yep.
But yeah, like, so anyway,
But let me ask you, did anyone ever discourage you about being an actor and said anything like, well, Christians can't be actors, or even that acting's wrong? It's like lying to people. You shouldn't be an actor.
yeah. It's weird. I grew up in an environment where that wasn't really a thing, especially the liar thing. Um, you know, I guess when you're in high school and your friends are like, are actors all liars? Like that's like one thing. But I mostly people that were in my circles, my Christian circles, or the leadership in my church, like they were always very encouraging. Go out there, do what God's calling you to do. And I think, practically, I think sometimes people like are thinking, well, how are you going to make money? Like, like
Yeah,
that's like my father-in-law,
That's you. Yeah,
yeah.
same thing with philosopher, right? I mean, that's the worst news a parent can get is
Yeah,
because at least with actor, you're kind of hoping for like an Oscar or something.
well,
But
yeah,
the
you're
best
hoping
philosopher
for
on earth,
that.
what do you get out of it?
That's right. It's like you're hoping to hit the lottery or whatever. That's kind of
Yep.
what it is. And there's all these things stacked against you. I mean, you got to win the gene pool too. I mean, like that's the other thing about being an actor, a successful actor. The people that are successful actors are like the best looking people in the world. And so going in there as me, like I'm not Brad Pitt, so like it was like, how do you find? I'm also not like ugly, like
Yeah.
and so it's kind of like I'm in this middle place where it's really hard to fit me.
Well,
So
and
I
I
don't
know
know.
like there's a lot of pushback about body positivity and being inclusive, but at the same time,
Yeah.
there are really objective standards about what people think is beautiful. Like they've
Uh-huh.
done studies on Brad Pitt's face, right? It's like what's going on with this guy's face, so that
Yeah.
you can, even if you change some of that stuff and make allowances for it,
Uh-huh.
yeah, guys like you and me are like, yeah, but there's still
Yeah.
these things that people want to watch.
Yeah, it's
That's
true.
probably not going to change easily in our lifetime. So,
No, it's so true. It's so true.
Mhm.
So being like a mid guy, like it's a weird place to be and find places and parts. And so anyway, but you know what? All that stuff none of that stuff matters when you're dealing with God and the kingdom. And so, you just got to be faithful. I would discourage anybody from being an actor that really wasn't called to do it, or if they were in it for the wrong reasons. I would just say, no, don't do it.
It's kind
Um,
of the glamour. They're attracted to the glamour.
yeah, yeah, right. Yeah, they're trying to just be successful or famous or whatever. And
Because I think
um,
there's something that we like about the people's eyes on us or being applauded for things. And this is one of the quick ways to get there. People think.
yeah, they always think that.
Mhm.
And I would say too, it's interesting with our motives because we always want to. You always want to kind of like measure our motives, and I was always aware of that as a Christian in the industry. I'm like, okay, why am I in this? Why am I in
Yeah.
this? Am I in it for the success? Am I in it for the money? Am I in it for the fame? And if I was totally honest with people, I mean, I guess that the truth is like those motives entered in
Mhm.
early on, and even sometimes they rear their ugly heads
Yeah.
now. And it's a weird thing because God tends to use people in spite of their motives. Even if
Yeah.
you look at a guy like David, like the first question he had when somebody asked him if he was going to slay the giant, and Saul is like, hey, he's like, hey, I'll kill this giant for you. And but what am I going to get out of it? It's like, I mean, so no taxes, and I get to marry the princess. Yeah, yeah, I'll kill that guy.
I'll do that. Yeah. I'll
Like
take
it's
care of
like,
it. Yeah.
oh yeah, and it's for the Lord too.
Yeah.
And
God always
so,
has to do that. Right.
yeah, it's like so.
But I think one of the good things for young people to hear is how much work it takes, because I think we see someone do something excellent, let's say acting or sports or teaching, and because I can do that. I mean, you just get up there and you put on some red makeup and you crack a couple jokes. That's not hard, but it
Yeah,
actually is super hard, and it took a ton of preparation to get there.
yeah, it did. Well, I mean, years and years of just learning how to act and aging. Aging helps acting too. I don't know if you know this, but
Hmm,
it just is easier as you get older for some
really?
reason. You've been in your body for longer. And and so yeah, I mean all that kind of stuff is just years and time and doing all these things and being
Yeah.
faithful over time. And but yeah, and I think the thing about that is like, yes, somebody could paint themselves, get on YouTube. And the question is whether or not what they're writing is good, whether or not they have a platform, like all those things had to align in order for anything that I've done to
Yeah.
to go anywhere, like because I could be doing this in my basement, nobody would see it. And so, God had to line up all these different things
Yeah.
in order for it to make any, for me to provide for my family while I'm,
Yeah.
painted red, whatever. So,
Yeah. Right.
so
When
yeah.
I've even talked to like media scouts or PR people, professionals, and they've said, "Hey, we can set up a lot of stuff, but at the end of the day, some things take off and some things don't. And if anyone knew what that was, they'd be a billionaire because they'd be doing it. So even the professionals are like, yeah, some of it there's what you know I'd probably say God. They might say
Yeah.
it's kind of randomness, but
Right.
some of it even the best experts can't predict what that'll be.
No, it's so true. Yeah, you can't. And that's definitely true with the Babylon Bee. Like some of our favorite sketches like go nowhere. Some of the stuff I think is probably our best work has gotten like 150,000 views, you know, and I'm just like, what in the world? You know, and other things that I think are just crap, like they're totally viral. And I mean, nothing we do is crap.
No,
Let's
no,
be
I know what you mean. Yeah,
honest, but
your
you know what I
expectation
mean?
for
Like,
it.
yeah. Yeah. So anyway,
Yep.
that's it's an unpredictable thing. You just have no idea.
Yep.
And sometimes when you perform, you have no idea whether or not it's good. So, you know, and other people will have to tell you whether or not it's good.
Yeah.
Because you don't have an objective understanding of your
Yeah.
own performance even. So yeah, it's very hard to predict. And I think to try to do that is probably a fool's errand. You just got to keep doing the work and you know, keep making jokes, keep making sketches, keep doing things and
Yeah.
you know, see what happens. Leave all the
100%.
results up to the Lord, you know.
And I want to get to the Babylon Bee in a second, but
Yeah.
before that, you're in drama right now. You're Rick
Yeah.
on Homestead, and
That's
I
right.
saw that movie, enjoyed it, and it's going to be it's released now on. Is it on Angel Studios?
Yeah, it's on Angel Studios. It was in the theater for a couple months there and did pretty well for a $5 million movie. It made
Yeah.
about 21 million, which is pretty good in the theaters. And then we'll see what happens with it in streaming. But it was a really amazing thing, and we had a pretty great run there. Yeah, and playing drama as a guy that has gotten into satire is a really interesting thing because I generally grew up as a dramatic actor.
Yeah.
And then in the last 3.5 years, 4 years, I've been doing comedy. And it's interesting how comedy trains you for drama too.
Yeah.
Because the timing and all that
Yeah.
stuff is just like it's training and it's really hard. Comedy is actually harder than drama.
Yeah.
That's what they say. And so anyway, so yeah, it's really cool to be able to do a dramatic role again. And it's very fulfilling, I think, because that's kind of where I really like to be. Yeah.
Well, and what's a day on the set like? So a young person thinks I show up, everybody applauds me, I say my lines, and they applaud me some more. What's it really like? You show up on the set early.
Yeah. Well, especially if you're like not the main character. Like the main character is probably in it from the very beginning. You know, you're talking to the producing people. You're like, I'm not the main character in the movie. I showed up a week after everybody knew each other. They were all, and all the soft guys from the movie, all the military, supposedly military guys, they're all actors. Nobody's actually military, but like they were out there like doing training together and that kind of stuff. And so when I show up, and I was there for about 2 weeks, and I didn't have any connection. So it's like really just like that sort of social awkwardness. Like, who do I talk to? Like, like they were very kind, but you're like getting to know people that are.
There's a job too. It's not just hanging out time.
Yeah, and everyone kind of has a rhythm that you have to figure out. So it's always like when you first show up on set, there's always a rhythm. And so you got like the smart people. I always figure out who the actual power brokers are. Like, who do I identify as the people that, really are the kind people that I'm going to really connect with? Like, who are the folks that, and obviously you have your director, and what kind of director is he? And is he going to be, like harsh on you, or are you going to like whatever? So my best preparation is to memorize the crap out of my lines, be ready for anything they ask me to do, any eventuality, be extremely flexible, and listen really hard to what the director's trying to tell you to say. Listen to what he means, like don't listen to what he's just saying. Listen to what he means. Be very intuitive. And the only way you can do that is if you're highly prepared and ready to go, like as an actor. It's like one of those things. It's like, because if you show up and somehow you can't hear the director's, you're so focused on your lines that you can't hear what the director's trying to tell you to do, like they'll never have you back. Like, because directability is like the biggest thing as an actor. It's like, can the director give you a line, give you some kind of direction, and can you flex with that direction? And can you do something different, and can you bring something authentic to it? So the only way to do that is to have massive amounts of preparation, memorize the crap out of it, and be ready to go. Yeah, so it's an interesting thing. It's always scary too,
Yeah, I bet.
because for me, going on set with people that are highly successful actors, people that have been doing this for 25 years, and I'm coming late. I'm Johnny come lately, so I'm like
Mhm.
the guy that went into ministry for 14
Yeah.
years. I haven't been on a big set like this for a really long time, and I am hanging out with real professionals. Now, those guys were totally gracious,
Hmm.
like very cool, kind to me. And but at the same time, it's intimidating,
Oh,
like
yeah, I bet.
I'm in a scene with Neil McDonough and I'm just like, dude, this guy is a pro.
Yeah.
And how do I come up to his level? Like, how do I give him what he needs to react to?
Yeah.
And what I found with Neil was really cool. He a lot of times actors on the reverse, like, so say they'll shoot the coverage for Neil and I'm on the opposite side. And so I'm trying to give Neil stuff, and then they'll switch and they'll shoot my coverage. And a lot of times, what actors do, especially professional actors, people that are kind of like a big deal, like they'll just kind of phone it in and say their lines for you. Like they won't
Yeah,
give
on
you
your side. Yeah.
yeah. And so like so because acting is oftentimes just reacting to the actor you're
Hmm.
acting with. And so like if he gives you something, you react to it. And so I found that Neil was just right there with me, dude. He
Hmm.
came right in. He gave me his face. He gave me all the emotion he would have done
Wow,
if
that's
he was
that's
on
really.
camera. So
Yeah,
he
because he's
really,
not being filmed at that point. Just for everyone to
no,
understand, you're being filmed for your side of it,
yeah. So
and he still
he
does
gave
what
me,
he needs to do. So he has to do it twice.
yep, yeah. He gave me all the emotion that he gave when he was on camera. So to me, that was just like very generous of him, and it helped me with my performance. And so I actually kind of like owe a lot to him,
Mm.
because it's hard to act when you're acting to a cardboard box, you know what I
Yeah,
mean? So it's very, very cool to have somebody that's as his stature
yeah,
to like help out some fledgling guy that showed up. Like,
yeah,
they're like, who is this guy? I've never heard of him.
yeah,
And so just kind of showing up. And anyway, so people were really cool to me,
yeah. It's a good set.
but it's
But that
always scary.
preparation part is why I assume that was true. So you confirmed it. There's like 99% preparation where you're working hard, and
Yep.
then you've got to show up. Assuming that's done, then
Mhm.
is when you start learning what the director wants.
Yeah. So I mean, and that's actually true, because you're doing most of your work in a closet,
Yeah,
Yeah, like you do all this work in a closet where nobody sees, you don't have anyone to work off of,
yeah.
you're just memorizing lines,
And you got to
and
be
then you show
responsive,
up.
like you said,
Yeah,
intuitive to the director. Because if you show up and you're rigid, and you
yeah,
say, "I memorized it this way in front of my mirror, so I'm going to deliver it this
right,
way," it's not going to
right.
work out.
No, 100. So I mean, like, people think it's an easy job. It's actually really terrifying.
Mhm.
Like
Yeah.
there's a lot riding on you.
When the camera flips on, even though I'm doing just low level stuff, I still find it like it's intimidating when you know, hey, I'm being recorded or watched by somebody. All the
Yeah.
more I can imagine if you're like a million people are going to watch this.
Oh yeah. And your future, all the other opportunities you could get,
Hmm.
your reputation's on the line every time.
Yeah.
Um, and you basically get work based on other people's recommendations. And so if I do poorly on this, it's like it's a big deal. And so yeah, so my first few days I was just repeating my lines over and over
Yeah.
and over again. And I think too, it's like one of those things, I think as you kind of grow in your craft or you grow in your career, you don't have to worry about that stuff as much.
Yeah.
Like
Early on, you have to do that.
yeah, no, totally. And
So,
even coming back, like I came back for the second part of the shoot for me was a couple months later. And so I memorized it, but it was like, well, I was a little more confident because they're bringing me back. They have all
yeah.
this backstory for my character. I wasn't as nervous, but I think you got to work all that stuff out on a new set. It's like crazy.
Yeah. And
Yeah,
it seems like the opportunities to do that are given to you, but then like you said, I've got to do well this time because who knows if I'll get another opportunity later. What
yeah,
are let me ask you this for again young people watching. What are the temptations like? I mean, in a secular university, it's a very immoral place. You
oh
think
yeah,
about going to a state university. No one thinks, hey, I'm going to go there and become more holy. But
yeah,
all the more Hollywood, right? What's that like for a Christian who wants to stay faithful? Are there things that go on there that we don't know about? Like maybe there is a good Christian network. I don't know.
yeah. So I think so what I find is, and even in Homestead, which I think was really good, the temptations are sort of a given. And so when you show up on a set, if there's anyone that's a believer there, and Homestead has a lot of believers, the temptations to whatever, cheat on your spouse or like, go out there and party too much and debauchery and all those things that you would imagine are part of the Hollywood experience. Like they are part of the Hollywood experience. And, it's like kind of going to a dark part of the internet where like you're actually going there for research or something, but
Yeah.
you're just surrounded by bad
You
ideas
gotta be careful.
or by pornography or something like that. Like you have to have accountability networks and all that stuff. And so I have a bunch of the guys on the set for Homestead are Christians, and we kind of immediately were like, all right, dude, we're gonna hold each other accountable. I'm not messing around.
Yeah.
And so I just want to let you know. So if we're in a hotel room or if there's like girls anywhere, like, so I'm not messing around with that stuff. So,
That's great.
and you too, right? And they're
Yeah,
like,
that's
yeah,
what I always tell young people, you got to have good mentors / pastor, and then a friend group for accountability. If you have those things, you're way better off. You're not going to make it as a lone wolf.
no. And then the people that fall are people that either have high confidence that they're not going to be in those situations. Like there's no sense of, humility in terms of their own, I guess, their own sinfulness. And I think for us, I'm just aware of my own shortcomings, my failing, and all my temptations and stuff. So I just I immediately when I go there, I set a net out, so that I protect my family, I protect, my faith and my wife, and
That's a good example of being realistic about yourself too. So you got the friend network, you have mentors, but you also don't have an unrealistic view of your own strength.
exactly. No, I mean, I think people that, and I've seen that too. There's been friends of mine that are actors that they just never thought about it. They're like, nah, it won't happen. It's not gonna happen to me. And those for sure, like inevitably, they're the ones that kind of step out or they have affairs or whatever. And so my thought is to, have a real sense of accountability. Billy Graham used to always, have somebody check his hotel room. Like he would always travel with, men or whatever. And like he wouldn't, and I have a tendency to be like that too. I'm very uncomfortable even, gosh, I mean, I'm like Mike Pence.
Yeah.
Like
You got made fun of for that, but yeah.
no, for sure. Like I have a 5-minute rule, like with conversations with women and stuff. And, but it's not like you're not kind. It's not like you're not friendly, but it's one of those things where I'm just like, yeah, okay. All right. I gotta go.
Yeah. And I know people the feminists I work with make fun of Mike Pence, or I think Mike Johnson, in the Congress had a similar thing.
Yeah.
And so they'll make fun of them like, well, you guys are so weak. You can't even be around a woman, have a professional conversation. But of course, if they had proof of a holy lifestyle, I might listen to them. But I know how secular professors live. So it's like, wait a minute, your own life proves why this rule is important.
No. Yeah, I think it's true. Yeah, the entire environment, like everything that happens, I mean, everything you see, all the headlines that you see, and these pastors falling and failing, and actors falling and failing, and everybody falling and failing.
Yeah.
That's in a world where, accountability and anonymity is kind of like, I don't know if it's anyway, it's just hard to get.
Yeah.
I think that I don't know. I think it's important to just be aware and just
Well, that's why another thing I always do too is I assume whatever I'm currently doing or any text I'm sending or email I'm sending could be on the front page of the New York Times. Not that I'm important, but how would I feel if it was? And if I wouldn't want that on the front page, then don't do it. So just like a little self-check to say, what if someone's like taking a picture right now? How's this look?
Yeah, 100. And my if you were to look at, just the way that you deal with social media, the way that you deal with your phone, your cell phone, text messages, because that's the anonymity piece. You think you're doing this in secret, and you're not. And I think that's the important piece to remember and to stay humble and just be like, all right, I am just as susceptible to any of this stuff as anybody else.
Yeah.
And I need to continually bring this before the Lord and take practical steps, and also be aware, be smart, be wise, when you're dealing with social media.
Yep.
You know what I mean? X, in my experience, has been a pretty clean platform, actually.
Yeah.
Strangely enough.
Comparatively, it's a lot better, but a lot of that stuff is just a way for garbage to get put in front of you.
Yeah.
And young people are so susceptible to it, where it's just like, man, you really need to guard yourself on most social media platforms.
100. No, even on X, but like I think, Instagram, like my wife runs my Instagram
Mhm.
because it's all photos. And like, and if
Yeah.
you're a 45-year-old guy, they'll just send you,
Yep.
women all day if
Mhm.
you're, like if you're not careful. So like
Yep.
anyway, so I mean,
Yeah,
these are
I'll get
very,
weird. I'll get like a message on X from someone who pictures a young, like a 20-year-old girl, and she'll say, "Hey, you sound really interesting. Want to talk?" And it's like, I don't sound interesting, and no, I don't want to talk.
no, those are fishing. Yeah. Fishing
No, yeah, they're
expeditions.
fake. I'm completely. But
Yeah.
if you
They're
don't
all
know that, if
fake.
you think some young guy who's naive thinks, "Oh wow, this girl is actually a girl, not a man in his mom's basement,"
Yeah,
and
that's right.
she wants to
Yeah.
talk to me.
Yeah. Yeah. And it does play on the loneliness thing, and it plays on the addiction to pornography that people have, and sort of the natural instincts that men have to,
Hmm.
be desired and all that kind of stuff, women too. And so, like that's the thing. I mean, gosh, we're getting into sort of like how to protect yourself from sexual sin
Yeah.
in the culture that we live in. And I think that's an extremely important topic. And I think it's one of the only ways to kind of,
Hmm.
yeah, gosh, I mean, if your hand causes you to sin, chop
Yeah.
it off, and if your eye causes you to sin, gouge it out. And I think, that's what Jesus said. He's like, get yourself far away from the
Yeah.
environments
So
that
cash it
will,
out like might be if your phone is causing you that much trouble, just get rid of it. It'd be better not to have a
yeah,
phone
it'd be better
than to
to
have a phone and
chop
be in
off,
hell.
chop
Mhm.
off your phone.
Yeah.
Yeah, right.
Yeah,
Yeah,
so that came up just because you and I both work in environments like that, and I know
yeah,
in my case, a lot of young Christians come to university and they don't prepare themselves, and pretty soon they're involved in the party life that everybody else is involved in,
yeah.
and there's no state university I know of that says you're going to leave here more holy or more virtuous.
Well, and I
The
think that's true
question
for
is, can you even get out with your virtue at all?
well, totally. And I think with Christian universities, it's the same thing. There's some structures there to kind of help you with it, but I mean, you got to be careful no matter where you go. And I don't think, I think Hollywood is, I mean, I've been lucky because most of the sets I've been on, there's been a lot of Christians and
Yeah, it
there's been
sounds
a
like it.
lot of
That's great.
accountability. And
And it's good to
honestly,
know that things like Angel Studios are legit. Because on the
yeah,
outside, you might think, oh, they're pushing the Christian thing, but they're making money. But you're telling us, no, this is really a legit thing where the actors there, in large part, are Christians that want to lead that life.
yeah. Well, and you got guys like Neil McDonough is a great example
Yep.
of a guy who's taken a stand. He won't even kiss women.
Yep.
I'm the same way. Like I won't kiss anybody,
Yep.
and I've lost parts because of that. And
And that was a standard in Hollywood for a long. I don't remember what year that was
huh?
changed, but you look back and you see in older movies when they kiss each other right here,
Uh-huh.
and they stay there a long time, and you think like, wow, they didn't know how to kiss back then. But no, it was illegal to kiss on the set. And
Oh,
so
that's
they try all these things to get around it, like having your lips right next to each other. And then there was a specific year that law was changed, and this floodgates just open up, and everything's okay on set.
yeah, that's the thing, right? Well, yeah, and that's another part of the story, but I would lose parts over it because,
Mm.
be like, yeah, I can't do
Yep.
this. I can't even be in a compromising position,
Hmm.
let alone whether or not I'm kissing someone. So
Yeah.
like, it's really hard. And I think with Neil, it's good because he's the kind of main actor in the movie, and that's his stance. So nobody's gonna like
Yeah.
criticize him. He's like the famous guy.
Yeah.
And the cool thing is like we've got people that understand that stance around me.
Hmm.
So it's not so much like, oh, I'm standing up against
Yeah.
this Hollywood evil. It's more like,
Yeah.
yeah, we get it.
We're doing it together. Mhm.
We really want to
Band of
protect our
brothers, to use a
marriages.
Neil reference.
Yeah, that's right, Band of Brothers, brother. Yeah, it's funny because yeah, anyway. But yeah, so that's I think the important piece. It's like, everyone kind of gets it now
Mhm.
in a way. It's almost like there was a culture shift.
Yeah.
And now it's like, no, your marriage is far more important than
Yeah, that's
this.
great. That's good to
And
hear. That's
and
really good to know.
I have a wife in the show,
Yeah.
and so we'll see what happens like as the characters develop. But there'll never be any kissing or
Yeah.
anything like that. And
They
so
know that. Mhm.
then they know it, and the actors know it. And there's horror stories with people doing that kind of stuff on set too anyway. And
I
so
bet.
I don't really
Yeah.
end up missing anything.
Yeah. I wouldn't think so.
Yeah.
So let's go back to comedy though, Babylon
Yeah.
Bees. And briefly, I mean, how did you get into that? What happened that you're now the producer?
Yeah.
What happened with that, and how does that work in the life of comedy? Because I want to ask you this question: is comedy okay? And the reason I'm asking that is just like some Christians might say acting's wrong. Some Christians say you should never. Comedy's just wrong. You're making fun of somebody. You're making
Mhm.
fun of poor Satan, but they might be okay with that. But you're
Yeah,
making fun
that's
of
right.
unbelievers.
Yeah.
How do you respond? Like, how does this all work out?
We're making fun of woke Christians, and
Yeah.
we will continue to.
All right, good. I'm
No,
glad to hear it.
honest, yes, dude, they're a scourge. Yeah, but I do think okay, so how did it happen? I was just an actor. I played a Russian gangster that wasn't sure if he was going to follow the Democrats' new gun laws because it would make it hard for him to continue murdering people. And so like that was my first
That was it on the
sketch.
first one. That's funny.
And then I was in the they them sketch where it was like lady identifies as they them, drives in the carpool lane. And that was a really great sketch too with my friend Chandler.
Yeah.
And she's wonderful as well. But yeah, so all that to say, I was just the guy solving problems. And so like that was kind of what happened. I would come on set. It was on the way home from church when I
Yeah.
was working at church. So I would drop by the office and I'm like, what do you need? What do you need? What do you need? And I just kind of decided to commit my time to trying to help the Babylon Bee. I was
Yeah.
like, and so when they needed locations or they needed
Yeah.
actors, I was like, yeah, I know people. Like I've been
Wow.
doing this for a long time. And so I started providing all that kind of stuff. So eventually, about 6 months later, they hired me as the producer of all the video stuff. And
Wow, that's
because
great.
I was just kind of already doing that job. And, so we have writers and then I'm a producer and I write
Yep.
on occasion. And, but mostly it's like me kind of taking somebody else's work and bringing it to life. We have a
Yeah.
production team.
Yeah.
I'm the guy that facilitates all that. I problem solve and
I love it. What I love about that story, though, your story is you went through all that preparation and you didn't know ahead of time this would be what happens. Then you go into ministry, which includes youth ministry,
yeah,
and now your work is like used by youth groups across the country,
yeah, that's
right? I
true.
mean, every
Yeah.
my two of my kids right now are at a Christian high school, and they're all watching this stuff and they think it's hilarious. Well, the Lord said, "Yeah, I do want you in this ministry. I'm going to open this up in ways you couldn't have anticipated," right?
Yes. Well, that is cool. And a lot of our stuff is directed at the church. And or it's like the apologetics ones, like the
Yeah.
resurrection
Yep.
hoax. Like I love the resurrection hoax. And people use it
Yeah.
as an
That's a
apologetic.
fun one.
Yeah, it's a really good one. And then we're doing some more woke Jesus, some more Satan sketches,
Oh,
like
good.
Satan. We're kind of doing an answer to the screw tape letters, like
Yeah.
Satan Masterclass.
That's
And
I read something about that, and that's excellent. And also you've done stuff with Satan with PragerU. I've done a couple videos with PragerU
yeah,
also.
that's right.
That's
Oh,
my
cool.
closest to acting, where
Oh,
they're like
fun.
turn it on, go, and I did 2 videos with them. So that was a lot of fun. That's a good overlap. But what you just said, I'm gonna play act now because the joke in Hollywood is every time you meet like a young guy, he says, "Hey, I've got this script." And
Yeah,
can you
that's
read my
true.
script? So let me pretend like I'm that guy for a second because when I saw your interest in C.S. Lewis and audiobooks and then doing satire, I've been
Yeah.
writing a series for Clear Truth Media, which
Oh,
is a
yeah.
spinoff of the Screw Tape Letters. It's called the
Really?
Red Tape Letters.
Oh,
So
interesting.
Comrade Red Tape is writing to Professor Holloway about how to corrupt the faith of a young Christian student. And so it's really
Great.
satirical, just like Lewis was.
Yeah.
But I thought that would be really cool. I don't know if there's any like overlap with Babylon Bee, but I think that'd be a
Yeah.
cool character for Babylon Bee.
That's interesting. We'll submit it, like send it to me. I'll read it and we'll see what we can do.
Yeah.
We've been working on 5-minute sketches and if they work out to be good 5-minute sketches, man, I mean,
Yeah.
that's good.
Yeah.
Um,
Doing something like because it's the same satire, but here's a group you need to start making fun of. One more group is the woke college professors. Hit that as
yeah.
hard as you can because they're very prideful and it'll get to their ego. But it
Yeah.
also will be great for the young Christian students going in, so that it kind of demystifies them. Because
Yeah.
when you're 18-year-old and you go in and this guy's a PhD or this gal's a PhD and you think they must really know their stuff.
Yeah.
No, I mean, I'm around professors who specifically joke about harming the faith of Christian students.
Yep.
So the more Christian people know that going into classes, the less it's a mystery. So that's why Satan stuff is funny because it kind of reminds us this is not God. This is a finite creature who's got a
Yeah.
silly ego and he's in rebellion against God. And then you
Uh-huh.
do that well with woke stuff in the church. So I just recommend do that with college professors too. I think there'd be some good college humor.
Gosh, that's a great idea. Yeah, that's cool. We haven't done much with the universities,
Yeah.
and I think we've done some good articles, but I
Yep.
think we haven't done a whole lot of sketches that way. So
Yeah,
we
you could do
should.
some funny either college sketches or there's a lot of good. I think it'd be really fun for Babylon B. I think you get some
No,
good
that's
links and
great.
stuff out of
It's a
that.
great idea. I love it.
Yep.
That's awesome.
Um,
Yeah.
now let me see a wrapping up here for before you go and get to witness. Um, we've kind of covered advice underneath. Like if a young person said, I would like to do this, we've kind of covered that with preparing yourself and then trusting and having faith in the Lord.
Mhm.
But any last things that you would say, like I'd sometimes joke with students, don't do it, right? Don't be a philosopher, just joking. Like, just realize a lot of young guys think I'm going to go into apologetics and I'll be a professor. And it's really a path that you got to be ready for because there's not a lot of jobs, for example.
Yeah.
What kind of thing would you say? A young 18-year-old says, I want to do what you're doing.
Yeah, there's a couple things. I mean, I think being an actor is just being an actor is a fool's errand. Like I don't think very many people should do it. I think it's a stupid job because you're at the behest of everybody else's storytelling, and there's nothing you can do to change that unless you become a producer, writer, actor. You can do that.
Yep.
So I don't think just being an actor is really a
Okay.
possibility. It has to be something where you fill it out with other things.
Right.
And then once you're doing all that stuff, you're creating your own opportunities and all that kind of stuff. And I know that sounds, like you're doing it, the Lord would be doing it. But
Yeah, I know what you mean. You prepare yourself with those things.
Yeah, that's how you prep. And I think that's the practical side of prep. The other side is trust the Lord and be willing to give it up. Like, don't idolize it. Don't be so committed to the acting. You're called to a person. You're not called to a
That's
thing.
a great point. Yep.
And so you're called to Jesus and, be faithful to Christ and, let him work on your character, because honestly, if you're a Christ follower, that's what he's going to be worried about more than anything else. And he might even withhold success and things until some of those character pieces are in place. If you kind of go for the success first and your character pieces are out of place, then,
even if you get it, it's bad for you.
It'll be bad for you. It'll crack you. It'll mess up the whole thing. And you'll probably take people with you because you're claiming Christ. And so that's the big thing. If you really want to be a Christian in the industry, then focus on the Lord and be a Christian first. You know what I mean? Don't worry about the other stuff. Yeah.
That's great. And does it ever feel awkward dressing up as, Satan? And
no, I love it because I get to have somebody spray paint abs on me and stuff.
That's funny.
Yeah. Yeah, dude.
You be ripped.
Yeah, I get to be ripped for a day. And then no, and dressing up like Jesus is a little bit weird. I think,
how do you feel about that? What do people say about that?
Yeah, I mean, I get the second commandment folks that are kind of mad, but I think mostly it's just we're making fun of woke Jesus. We're not making fun of Jesus.
Yeah, right. Yeah, it's a hippie caricature of who Jesus should be.
Yeah, it's basically we're taking what the progressive church says Jesus says, and we're actually putting it into his mouth.
Yeah.
And saying, okay, look at how ridiculous it is when he says it.
Yep. That's right. That's perfect. Yeah, that was the bishop lecturing President Trump a few weeks ago about what Jesus, do what Jesus said, which we all agreed that'd be great if he did that. But just given her position of not really believing what Jesus says, this is awkward. Like, well, wait a minute, you don't believe what Jesus said in the New Testament. Right. Why are you lecturing someone else? But yeah, I think my favorite sketch is when Satan is complaining the Democrats have become too evil. Hey guys, let's tone this back a little bit.
Yeah, that's great. It's great, but just tone it down. Yep. Yeah, I love that sketch too. I think it may be my favorite one. Yep. I like that one. I like when the devil responds to Kamala's loss. I think that was one of my favorite sketches too.
Yeah, that's great
He's
stuff.
Drinking the Bud Light at the beginning, and nectar of the demons. Yeah.
And I remember, did you guys have a Bud Light with that trans actor on there? I don't remember.
No, we didn't. I didn't have Dylan Mulvaney on mine, but it was just a regular Bud Light, and I had my little straw. I was drinking it out of the straw. And,
hey, thanks for making time in your schedule with every producer, actor, writer. I really appreciate it. It's a lot of fun to talk to you, and I know that the people who watch this, whether they're parents or younger people, are going to get a lot of benefit out of it. So thank you.
Good, praise God. Hey, thanks for having me on. I really appreciate it, man. It was a good time.
Yeah, we'll keep in touch. Bye.
All right, see you later. Bye.